Hi, it's that fantasy chick back again with another stream. I know it feels like I'm doing two back-to-back streams because I did. Because I was just here Halloween and did a Halloween stream. And I decided, I wanted to do an election day stream. And I know it's, like I haven't been going live as often lately, but every time I've just been doing when a subject pops up that I want to talk about, I come on and I do a live. Excuse me. Um, I have no idea what is going on in the election right now. After I voted today, I pretty much avoided it like the plague. But today, what we're going to talk about is you know, as you all know, I am a DC girl. And in DC comics, in the Superman comics, Lex Luthor was elected president. When I was, trying to get like details of that for this stream, I found out he had been elected three different times. That's that's kind of scary. So we're gonna find out if it was three different timelines or all the same time. It couldn't be all the same timeline because you can't be elected president three times. That's just so one. I mean, at least two of those, or maybe all three, have to be different timelines. But whatever. Um. So, before we get into that, um, I was at an event yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to see Superman and Lois live, but I saw it this morning, and I saw it like after I finished voting, I came back and I watched Superman and Lois, while I was looking up my information on Lex Luthor, and man, boy, what was so funny is the Superman Lex Luthor confrontation just reminds me of just, I don't know, all of the other Superman Lex Luthor confrontations I've seen, like either in, animation or movies, TV shows, comics. It's always Lex Luthor do something evil. Superman gets all riled up and confronts him. And Lex is like, huh? What? I don't know what you're talking about. At least this time, hey, I see my you doing. I was like, at least this time with you know Lex Luthor pulling his little act, it wasn't like it was in front of a whole crowd of people. Although, since they were in Smallville would have backed Clark no matter how out of pocket he was being. And it's, as it turns out, it seems like all of Smallville know Clark is Superman. Because we started off with the one dude who was like, yeah, my wife died last year. I recognize that paint on your face when Superman died. I know that's Clark. Then it was a little black girl. I saw you when your dad, when Superman died. I knew that's your dad. And next thing you know, it was this woman who Lex Luthor was trying to get, was trying to buy her farm so he can bring LexCorp to Smallville. And she was like, oh, well, Clark, if you feel this way after all you've done and sacrificed for us, I'm like, does all of Smallville know Clark is Superman? I feel like that's going to tie into the downfall of Lex Luthor because he's like underestimating these small town people. Because when he was trying to bully that woman into selling him her farm, he was like, I'll give you $10 million and I'm going to give everybody in this bar $10 million if you sell that farm. Thinking he could buy them, but they're small town people and they're like, we would rather refuse this money than let in somebody who's going to come and try to take over us. It's like, especially since we know this dude tried to kill Superman, and we're just now finding out Superman is from our town. So I think they have like some small town pride, on the line, and also you just the whole small towns usually stick together. So that's going to be the downfall of Lex Luthor. It's not just going to be is never really Superman's brute strength. Superman's brute strength can never um uh um win against Lex Luthor. It's always got to be brains over brawn with him. So I think it's really gonna. I think the whole town coming together is gonna rise up against Lex, and he's not gonna be able to fight them. Okay, so let's get into the. I don't know if I'm gonna read every last word in these articles. I just skimmed them, so we'll probably skim them together. But let's get into. Oh, I forgot. Um, if you were here for my Halloween stream, I made like these Halloween transitions to play between each topic. So I made a regular transition for the regular live stream. So let's play our first. Let's do our first transition. Isn't that cute? Very, very very demure. Very, 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 very demure. Let's get into the first article. Share screen. It's been so long. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. What's the first one? The first one is this. Den of Geek. Okay. So, and I want to do this. Bam. Make it a little easier to see. Okay. So Lex Luthor, and the 3 times he was elected U.S. president. DC Comics villain Lex Luthor has on 3 occasions become president of the United States. Here's what happened. Okay, so first one, Lex 2000. Perhaps the biggest story to involve Luthor as president was the one that took place in DC Comics shortly after the turn of the century. The megalomaniac billionaire turned to politics after his popularity grew following the restoration of Gotham City, the hometown of Batman, had been cast adrift from the rest of the United States when struck by a devastating earthquake in the No Man's Land arc. The previous administration had handled the disaster poorly, and Luthor's financial intervention exposed the failings of his predecessors. This, along with the promise of major technological advancements and a ban on fossil fuels, helped him slide into the Oval Office with barely any opposition. Despite initially refusing to overthrow Luthor by force, Batman and Superman eventually teamed up to bring down the president. Although the duo was faced with an army of villains and converted heroes, what? It was Luthor who proved instrumental in his own downfall. While secretly being recorded by Batman, he admitted to trading weapons with the alien despot Darkseid in order to defeat another invading alien, Imperiex. Wow. Batman, whose alter ego, Bruce Wayne, had been framed for murder by the Luthor administration, made this confession public. In a further act of vengeance, Luthor learned that his business empire had been sold to Wayne right from under his nose. Disgraced and bankrupt, Luthor was forced to step down as president, serving less than 3 years in the White House, a period that was rife with corruption and deception. Wait a minute. Oh my gosh. That was awesome. Okay. Okay. So he started off good, helping out Gotham, making all these promises. But of course, because it's Lex Luthor, it was littered with with corruption. And framing Bruce Wayne like Batman is just gonna let that be. Oh my goodness. I really love the fact that Batman uh bankrupted Lex Luthor. Okay, next one. Justice League, A Better World. The Justice League animated series had many great storylines during its 5 seasons, and this two-part episode is one of the best. It only gives us the briefest glimpse of President Luthor, but the ramifications of his actions are unthinkable. At the start of the first episode, we see Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman storming the White House. I think I remember this episode. Within the Oval Office, Luthor is rummaging through papers, muttering to himself about a grand design for the world and how the public failed to appreciate his vision for the future. With Luthor's finger on the nuclear weapon launch, Superman bursts in only to learn a shocking truth from his arch nemesis. By allowing Luthor to be elected president and impose his politics upon society, Superman has been his greatest accomplice. If Luthor is never truly punished for his crimes, like murdering the Flash, what? Superman and the Justice League can never truly win their struggle. In that moment, Superman abandons all of his heroic intentions and disintegrates Luthor, putting to an end his schemes once for all. This shocking turn of events sees the entire Justice League resort to the tactics of a police state. Okay, I do remember this. Keeping the entire human race under heavy surveillance, effectively eradicating all crime, ruthlessly using their special powers. Of course, this isn't the regular Justice League, but an alternate version from another universe known as the Justice Lords. The loss of the Flash combined with Luthor's rise to power was too much for the heroes of this world to take and resulted in them mirroring the callous methods of their enemy. Although he didn't defeat the Justice Lords, Luthor did succeed in perverting their goodwill beyond all recognition. I do remember that episode. I can't remember how it resolved itself, but it was crazy when Superman disintegrates Luthor. I'm like, did he really do that? Oh my gosh. Okay, Superman Red Son. I've never read this, but I've heard about it a lot. What if, as a child, Superman hadn't landed in Smallville, Kansas, but 1930s Ukraine instead? What if the Man of Steel had adopted the ideals of communism and became the all-powerful leader of the Soviet Union, whose expansion grew to consume most of the world? What if the President of the United States, Lex Luthor, was the only man who dared to stand up to him? Mark Miller's Red Son is a fascinating take on the Cold War melding the goodwill of Superman with the totalitarianism of Stalin. Once again, Luthor proves to be the polar opposite, embracing capitalism and standing as a leader of one of only two nations not to fall to Superman's iron grip. Their growing rivalry escalates to the point of global war, but there remains an air of mutual respect between the pair. Both men have good hearts, but they can never truly coexist on the same planet. Luthor is not strong enough to fight Superman, but Superman is not intelligent enough to debate with Luthor. Eventually, Superman sees the error of his ways and sacrifices himself to prevent the world from annihilation at the hands of Brainiac, thus conceding his power to Luthor. With no opposition to him, Luthor achieves global domination. But this isn't a bleak dystopia. Earth and the known universe prosper under Luthor's reign. Disease, illness, and even sleep are rendered obsolete. Governments are dissolved and replaced by a one world parliament of writers, artists, scientists, and philosophers. Life expectancy is increased to an astonishing 800 years. Humanity eventually becomes the most advanced species in history. Red Sun suggests that both Superman and Luthor could change the world significantly if one wasn't in the way of the other. There is no doubt that this incarnation of President Luthor is the most hopeful and ambitious. His genius solves all of humanity's problems, but he can only do this once his Superman obsession has concluded. And at the same time, like Lex Luthor is the genius. He can do what this Luthor did in Superman Red Sun. But the thing that you gotta realize is where are we? Okay, here we go. The thing that you have to realize is he's too, because not only is he, it's not just about his obsession with Superman, it's about the fact that he wants, world domination, and he's greedy. He wants it all. He wants to control the world. Like Lex Luthor does not trust Superman. Yes, he doesn't trust an alien, but he also still wants to, he still has this whole global domination and just greed and just he's evil. So yeah, if Lex Luthor put aside his obsession with Superman, his need for greed and global domination for the sake of control, then yeah, he probably could be a good president. And what's ironic is when I saw they said that the human life expectancy grew to 800 years. I once read a sci-fi short story. I was reading a whole bunch of sci-fi short stories at one point to try to improve my writing. And there was a story about basically humans working on being able to extend their life by basically creating another human body and downloading all of, like your brain and all of your knowledge and memories and history into this new body, this new brain, da 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 da. So all throughout this short story, the main issue is that only like rich and powerful people, like people in politics, like people in leadership roles. So the rich people and the people in leadership roles right now are the only ones who have access to being able to download themselves into new bodies. So there was this politician who's like fighting for the right for everyone to be able to do this. And along the way, he realized, like, he goes and he starts investigating, the scientists and all of their work. And at one point, he realizes there was a roadblock in the research. He couldn't figure out what it was. And these scientists, they are included in the people who would be downloaded into a new body. And what he discovered is once the scientists had unlimited life, like they knew that they could be downloaded into another body ad nauseum forever, and like basically they could live forever because of this. They lost all ambition. There was no more ambition. They were like, I have nothing but time. I do not have to solve this right now. I will solve it eventually. So everyone becomes, what's the word? Is apathetic the word? It's just there. Yeah, there was just like a atmosphere of apathy around these scientists who had already been uploaded into new bodies, that they're not on a time crunch. Like, most people are trying to achieve all that they can achieve in one lifetime, but they no longer have one set lifetime. They have all the time in the world. And so it's like, you know, because of that, they were like, if you're once you're uploaded into this new body, then all of a sudden the urgency in achieving your goals goes away. And I think I can't remember. I think it happens to this politician once he's up, or I don't know. I think he fights against getting uploaded because he's afraid that will happen to him, but he has like a heart problem or something. So he ends up getting uploaded anyway. I can't remember the end, but yeah. Superman, the best baby. Yes, he is. I love Superman. Yes, I love Superman. And it's funny. Superman Red Sun. I think the reason why people love that so much is because it's like Superman, it really explores the whole Superman Lex Luthor dynamic. We get to see Superman as the greatest threat, and we get to see Lex Luthor as the greatest what am I trying to say? To his greatest advantage. So yeah. Okay. So next article. Okay. So the next article we're gonna do, let's see what we're doing next. Do-do-do-do. Next is, I can't see what that is. Okay. Third World Geek. How Lex Luthor became president. So we're gonna find out which of these times he became, because in Den of Geek, like I saw, what was that? Yeah, I think I was wondering if it was three different timelines, and it was. Well, it was basically one was animated, and I think the other two are comic book. So, okay. So, third world geeks being a geek from another point of view. Okay, how Lex Luthor became president. Let's just get. Okay. Okay, he's one of them. How did he become? Okay, we have to first look at the version of Lex Luthor, the post-crisis interpretation of the character. Before the Crisis of Infinite Earth storyline that rebooted the DC Comics multiverse in 1986, Lex Luthor was a brilliant but mad scientist and inventor who would build devices in a big or maybe bid to defeat Superman. This all changed after Crisis. When the DC multiverse got rebooted, Lex Luthor was changed to reflect the most dastardly and evil archetypes of them all, a rich businessman. The change was extremely drastic for a lot of people who grew up reading the pre crisis comics, but people eventually got used to it. In fact, it actually made a lot of sense in these modern times. Lex Luthor didn't need to break out of prison anymore, as he had a team of high priced lawyers to come to his defense. He was also rich and influential enough to bribe and blackmail the right people to get him out of sticky situations. Sounds familiar? And if all else fails, he can resort to finding a scapegoat and pin his crimes on that unwitting patsy. This made him more than a formidable foe for Superman, as no matter what the Man of Steel did, Lex Luthor would always get away scot-free. Okay, so this is the Lex Luthor I grew up with. I did not grow up with the mad scientist. This also had an interesting side effect to his character. It made Lex Luthor to many characters in the DC universe as an actual good guy. Wow. His company, LexCorp, works of different fields, works, I guess, in different fields of industry and employs millions of people in order to keep his squeaky clean image. Lex Luthor also had dozens of charities and he did a lot of philanthropy across the globe. Sure, a lot of them were covers for more of his evil plots, but the general public of the DC universe didn't know that. All they saw was what a great guy Lex Luthor was and how he's helping a lot of people. Then came the No Man's Land storyline, which I just went over. So yeah, we're gonna skip that because we already just read that. So okay, so the main point here is he decided to run for the presidency of the United States, and with his popularity at an all-time high, thanks to the events of the No Man's Land storyline, he won. He didn't need to pay off anyone. He didn't need some elaborate machine to brainwash the public to vote for him. He won fair and square. I'm gonna skip that. uh okay. Okay, so they just talked about okay, so they basically just went into No Man's Land, which I we already read in the Den of Geek storyline. So where am I? Here we go. Okay, so let me plug in my computer. Okay. So yeah. So I did not know that Lex was once a mad scientist. I've always only known him as the rich businessman. So I do agree that I think the rich businessman makes more sense than a mad scientist. Because I feel like a mad scientist, wouldn't be so opposed to an alien. Because like that's Lex Luthor's whole thing. He does not like the fact that Superman is an alien. He does not trust him. He does not trust the fact that someone with all that power wasn't born on Earth. So he doesn't know if he's trying to do, world domination. He was like Superman. Basically, he projected his own beliefs onto Superman. Superman has all this power. He can control us all. Because we all know if Lex Luthor had Superman's power, he would use it to dominate the world. And that's what he's afraid Superman will do. So I really like the I prefer the rich businessman over the evil scientist. And yes, everything they were saying before about, just everything about his setup, just Superman, because it just makes more sense than having Superman catch Lex Luthor after his schemes, lock him up, and then he breaks out of prison. But this Lex Luthor gets out legally. He fights this. He fights back legally. He beats the system. He gets out over and over again. And the whole nobody knows he's evil but Superman. So that's something that I've seen a lot in the different comics and the different animations, even in Smallville. Nobody knows how evil Lex Luthor is but Superman. So Superman a lot of times is screaming into the void that whatever bad thing is happening, Lex Luthor is behind it, but he never has proof. And so nobody believes him. Everybody's like, Lex Luthor wouldn't do that. He's doing such and such and such. They bring up all his philanthropic roles and how he's, all the stuff he's doing that would be against whatever this big thing is going on. And of course, what he's doing is just a cover for him doing the other thing that Superman truly believes that he did. So it's like Superman can't fight him with Superman can't fight him with his strength. He always has to outsmart him. And that's where Lois Lane comes in. It's him and Lois, as Clark and Lois have to investigate. Lex Luthor has to get, proof, undeniable proof that Lex Luthor is doing what he's doing. And a lot of times, like in the what is that storyline? Like in the No Man's Land storyline, or after the No Man's Land storyline, they pretty much have to catch him on tape admitting something, or catch him on tape doing something. So it's like, yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, so I have a poll up asking, did you vote? Did you vote today? Did you do early voting? Did you mail-in vote, or did you not vote? Put it in the chat. As we all know, I'm Central Standard Time. So everybody from here to the east of us are through voting for the day. But everybody west of us, you still have a chance to go out and vote. So let me see if anybody else has participated in this poll. So right now, we just have one person, 100%. Yep, they voted today. Okay, awesome. Thanks for doing your civic duty. Okay, so this last article, I don't know how much I'm going to read of it. It's very long, and I think they're going to go into the details of stuff that he did while he was in office. So it's like, I wanted to know, how did he become president and what did he do when he was president? So I think this last article is going to show us that. So let's transition. Okay. So the last article is from remember in the presidency. Oh, the last article is from the Daily Planet. Sorry. Sorry, Daily Planet. You know how it is. So it's this an actual website. This is basically like an article on the Daily Planet about Lex Luthor's presidency. So I'm guessing this is going to be talking about his presidency after No Man's Land. Okay. The following is an abridged excerpt from Wayne's Publishing's American History 2 textbook. So Bruce Wayne published his history textbooks too? I thought he was just a technology company, but whatever. Let him publish books. Well, you know what? When you're a billionaire, you're not going to have just one company. You're going to have multiple companies. So I guess a publishing company is one of his many companies. Okay. Under Wayne Enterprises. This chapter focuses on the presidency of Lex Luthor. Like Luthor's life itself, his presidency is filled with unconfirmed rumors, innuendo, and controversy. Many of the key events surrounding his short term are still being disputed among historians. Due to the unusual nature of conflicting facts and the absence of Luthor's presidential records, this chapter will present the facts as we know them while noting contradicting material. Um, okay. I don't want to do before the presidency. Let's skip to campaign. Okay. Lex Luthor shocked the world when he stood outside the steps of LexCorp Tower and announced his candidacy for the office of the President of the United States. Adventures of Superman 581. Instead of running as a Democrat or Republican, Luthor said he would be launching a new group known as the Tomorrow Party, built on a platform of taking the nation into the prosperous future. Despite the brief interruption from a costumed criminal known as Adversary, Luthor's speech was well received and excited the citizens of Metropolis. Luthor's candidacy was not without its controversy. King Orin of Atlantis, most popularly known as Aquaman, felt that Luthor's B-13 technology was damaging underwater life. Orin launched an attack on the United States and kidnapped Luthor, but Lex was able to solve the situation diplomatically. Luthor researched Orin's claims and learned that the B-13 technology had accentuated the Atlanteans' aggressive traits. After making peace with the Atlanteans, Luthor survived an assassination attempt at a Metropolis rally. Oh my God. Okay, life is imitating art. Two shots were fired, one striking the candidate. The injuries proved minor, and Luthor's poll numbers increased upon his recovery. Another bump in the polls came when he chose former Kansas Senator Peter Ross as his running mate. Um, okay, for those of you who don't know, Pete Ross was Clark Kent's, aka Superman's best friend in high school in Smallville. So Lex Luthor's running mate was Superman's best friend from high school? Okay. Ross described the ticket as the country mouse and the city mouse. Ross's small town roots contrasted with Lex's big city mogul background and appealed to Midwest voters. To prepare for his presidency, Luthor stepped back from LexCorp and appointed Talia Head as the chief operating officer. On election night 2000, Luthor narrowly beat Governor George W. Bush and Vice President Al Gore, a rare instance of a third party candidate scoring a victory in the national election. President elect Luthor was personally congratulated by Superman despite press rumors of their feud. Oh my goodness. He beat Bush and Gore. Oh, wow. A few weeks before his inauguration, the outgoing Clinton administration allowed Luthor to use the White House press briefing room to announce his cabinet. To keep with the platform of the Tomorrow Party, Luthor's cabinet was full of unconventional choices. General Frank Rock was chosen as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Amanda Waller, I can't stand that hoe, was the first Secretary of Metahuman Affairs. Major Sam Lane, aka Lois Lane's dad, was appointed Secretary of Defense. Former athlete and educator Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning, was named Secretary of Education. And television personality Katharine Grant was appointed White House press secretary. We all know Cat Grant from Supergirl, who was Supergirl's boss at her newspaper. Okay. He had a lot of Superman's allies on his cabinet. Interesting. President Lex Luthor was inaugurated on January 20th, 2001. The ceremony was briefly interrupted by a metahuman criminal called Earthquake, who accused President Luthor of forsaking his suicide slum route. Selling out, I guess. The Secret Service worked with Superman, Steel, Stripe, and the Star Spangled Kid to stop the attack. Thanks to their intervention, the ceremony continued and there were no casualties. President Luthor's first act in office was to pass a bill called the Justice League Spending Act, which ensured the metahuman superheroes of the nation had the necessary funding to do their work. President Luthor redistributed the United States budget, sending billions of dollars to public schools. Oh my goodness. Despite his rumored run-ins with, okay, with Lex, there is always an ulterior motive. So he did all this stuff to be popular, but there was something else he was doing. He was doing something else. Despite his rumored run-ins with Superman, Luthor was seen as the most metahuman friendly president to date. President Luthor was one of the first world leaders to officially recognize Atlantis as a nation, setting up trading arrangements and sharing technology. The Man of Steel assisted President Luthor with his first foreign relations crisis after the leader of Bialya imprisoned an American journalist. At the orders of President Luthor, Superman rescued the journalist and helped the United States avoid an international incident. Oh my goodness. The most notable event during Lex Luthor's presidency was the Imperiex War. While most presidents have had to coordinate wars against other nations, President Luthor was faced with an enemy power from beyond the stars. The attacker was a being known as Imperiex, who sought to destroy the planet. The first shots were fired at Topeka, Kansas, destroying the city and killing countless residents. Okay, so real quick, one of the things I am noticing about this article is you have to take into account that this is an article from the Daily Planet. So they're not giving us a recitation of the plots of the storylines. They're giving us what an actual newspaper would have known and would have printed. So we're just getting basically a shell of what happened. Because like this, I didn't read this story. So people who have read this story could probably read along and be like, oh, when he did that, he was really doing this. So when he did that, he was really doing this. And this is what actually happened. So this story isn't telling us what actually happened, but it's very clever. It's a very interesting, unreliable narrator. Uh, um, yeah, it's an unreliable narrator. So you have to take them with unreliable narrators. You have to take things with a grain of salt. Like this is what appears to be, but you know there's something else going on. Yeah. Okay, so where was I? President Luthor was faced with the enemy power from beyond. Okay. The first shots were fired at Topeka, Kansas, destroying the city and killing countless residents. President Luthor's good relations with the metahuman community paid off, and he rallied the Justice League to help the military take on Imperiex. President Luthor made the controversial decision to weaponize the being called Doomsday, hypnotizing the creature into seeing all of Imperix's probes as his enemy Superman. So this is pretty much like what happened on Superman and Lois. But on Superman and Lois, that Lex Luthor took Bizarro and turned him into Doomsday. and then pit him up against Superman. Um, Whereas, this Lex Luthor is controlling, he's just controlling Doomsday to go up against Imperiex, but like, when the time is right, he would use Doomsday against Superman. The combined forces of the United States military and the metahuman community were able to defeat Imperiex, but at a great cost. It was estimated that over 8 million people died during the conflict. What? Including Secretary of Defense. Daily Planet reporter Clark Kent published a story alleging that President Luthor had advanced knowledge of the Topeka, Kansas attack, causing some pundits to wonder if impeachment was on the horizon. President Luthor invited the Justice League to the White House so the telepath Martian Manhunter could probe his mind as a lie detector test. Luthor passed the test, but not everybody was convinced. He is like, if he gonna ask you to come probe his mind, he's already set up a defense ahead of time. He's not stupid. He's not stupid. Ultimately, President Luthor became enmeshed in a scandal and failed to complete his only term. Luthor's administration blamed Superman and Batman for a Kryptonian meteor heading to Earth and offered a $1 billion bounty for their capture. The asteroid was destroyed and Superman was cleared of all wrongdoing. President Luthor donned war armor from the planet Apocalypse, and that Apocalypse is, I think that's either where Dark Side is from, or it's Dark Side's like planet, but I think it's like a planet, but also a spaceship. I'm not quite. But Apocalypse is connected to Darkseid and addressed his constituents in a puzzling way. Theodore Roosevelt said it best: speak softly and carry a big stick. I wear that stick, Luthor said. It was a far cry from his iconic The Tomorrow Party speech, and many questioned his mental health. Testimony from White House officials later revealed that President Luthor had been injecting himself with the performance-enhancing drug called Venom, which is known to have negative mental health side effects. President Luthor's battle with Superman was broadcast to the world, and during the skirmish, Luthor confessed to engineering the asteroid crisis and numerous other crimes. President Luthor disappeared after the battle with Superman, presumably skipping town rather than facing the inevitable impeachment hearings. After President Luthor's disappearance and presumed death, the 25th Amendment was invoked and Peter Ross became the 44th president. Oh, Peter Ross was the first. Wait, you know what? I'm about to say something wrong. I was about to say, Peter Ross became the first black president. Peter Ross ain't black. Pete Ross on Smallville is black. Pete Ross in the comics, I think, is like a blonde-haired white guy. And Peter Ross became the 44th president of the United States. Ross's presidency proved shorter than Luthor's, and he soon resigned after a few weeks, citing personal problems. Jonathan Horn became the next president of the United States, bringing much-needed stability back to the office. Luthor resurfaced and claimed his recent crimes had been committed by an otherworld doppelganger. An autopsy of a body found in a Gotham City alley matched Luthor's DNA and fingerprints, adding credence to Lex's story. After a series of investigations exonerated Luthor for over 120 criminal charges, Lex left politics behind and returned to the world of business. Okay. These are footnotes claiming that Luthor had promoted. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so remember in the article, it said that when Lex became president, he appointed Talia Head as his COO, where it says unconfirmed intelligence reports claims that Talia Head is a terrorist known as Talia al Ghul. aka Ra's al Ghul's daughter. Those reports remain unverified. After the end of the Luthor presidency, Head sold all of the shares of Lex Corp to Bruce Wayne before disappearing from public life. That's what happens when you put a terrorist in control of your company. But okay. Amanda Waller has been overheard saying that the real Frank Rock died in 1945, implying that the one who served in President Luthor's administration was an imposter. Major Sam Lane is the father of Lois Lane, the Daily Planet reporter who previously accused Lex Luthor of masterminding the fall of Metropolis. Uh, the public soon learned that Jefferson Pierce was the costumed adventurer Black Lightning. When this was revealed, Luthor's successor, President Ross, asked Pierce to step down. What you can't be a metahuman cabinet member. Secretary Lane survived the Imperiex conflict and was placed in a secret government program to monitor alien activity. His own family was allegedly unaware of his survival. Are we talking about General Lane? Who are we talking about? Was the only Lane I know from his cabinet was Sam Lane. Oh, Secretary of Defense. Yes, so Secretary Lane. They're talking about Sam Lane. Okay. Sources close to the Justice League have alleged that President Luthor was using a psychic ally to pass the test, but nobody has gone on record to confirm the rumor. What I say about Lex Luthor already having a defense in place before he asked you to probe his mind. Come on. Of course he will. And it's worth noting that Luthor's defense team using a multiverse doppelganger as an alibi is similar to his previous trial, where the case was dismissed due to the discovery of a Luthor clone. Meaning he could have set up that doppelganger. I mean, he definitely did set up that doppelganger. Yeah. So that was interesting. Okay, so that pretty much, that's the Lex Luthor after No Man's Land. That story included everything except for the story about how he except for the story about how he framed Bruce Wayne for murder and how Bruce Wayne videotaped his confession. So that's wow. So, okay. So this is what we've learned tonight about Lex Luthor's mini presidencies. The main one being because like the one on Justice League is a couple of episodes, and then you have Superman and Red Sun. That's like sort of an alternate universe thing. So the main one being his presidency in 2000 after No Man's Land. So this Lex Luthor, he basically operated, like Lex Luthor would operate. He did all of this overly generous stuff to get everybody on his side and to get all the people to trust him. So once everybody trusted him, then Superman couldn't accuse him of things because they're like, Lex wouldn't do that. Lex funded the Justice League. Why would he do that? Lex has all this, so it's like he started doing all these things, and underneath that, but he was still committing crimes all along, still committing crimes. I'm sorry, but a legit president doesn't hypnotize Doomsday and make a weapon suit from Apocalypse. This is not something a legit good person would do. So, reading why there is something I've said, and this is going to be my only allusion to the actual election is I hadn't read these storylines. I hadn't read anything. I just about Lex Luthor's actual presidency, and I used to wonder, how did Lex Luthor become be elected the president of the United States? And then I was like, well, then 2016 happened, and that cleared up a lot of stuff for me. But this is very different from 2000. Well, it is the same. It's the same and it's different. It's the same because he was able to sweep in because there were a lot of people who were upset with how things had been done. And he came in with a lot of promises, and he's like, "I'm going to do this," because it was what happened to Gotham. Now, the fact that he was able to get elected to the United States off of helping one little city is like, maybe that tells you the different world we're in between 2000 and 2024. 2024, nobody's caring about that city unless they're in it. He can be elected governor of New York or mayor of New York. Or, I'm sorry, Gotham, because we all know Gotham is New York. Anyway, he's not getting elected, but because he's not getting elected president over because of what he did for one city. Like, that's like, the whole Giuliani. Giuliani was, he was the hero of 9/11 and all the stuff he did for the city after that. He never got elected president behind all the stuff he did for New York. So it's like, but still, that administration made a lot of mistakes, did a lot of things, and these people didn't trust them anymore. And here you come, here comes Lex Luthor as an angel of light, and with promises, technology, and money, and then he does all these right things. He has this diverse cabinet filled with people who are allies of Superman. And so he's not just putting it like he's not just putting in his friends or people who donated to his campaign. Like, he's putting in actual effort to make things look good. Like, I would say on that cabinet, the most shady person is Amanda Waller, because she's just shady all day. All day, every day is Amanda Waller is the queen of shade. But, that was a pretty decent cabinet that he put together. But he realized, as long as he was doing all this stuff on the surface, underneath there, he can continue with his agenda. And he did. And it took 3 years for them to catch him. And wow. So he didn't even get impeached. He just got kicked out. So, yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. So that's very interesting. And it's very interesting reading it in the Daily Planet. And it's a history, it's an excerpt from history, but still all these reasons why they couldn't just come out. We would have been better off if they would have. I don't know what Metropolis's version of a National Enquirer is, but we would have been better off reading the article in one of those, because they would have had all the gossip, and we would have had the whole storyline. But that was interesting. Okay, so that was us exploring Lex Luthor's 3 presidencies. 3 different times he was elected president, but again, 3 different timelines. One is the regular comics timeline. One is the Justice League animated series, And one was this offshoot book, Superman and Red Sun, which was already exploring a whole lot of what ifs, what if Superman was communist? What if Lex Luthor was good? So that that was very interesting and informative. And the saddest thing is, although there are people in this world, capitalist people, who are as evil as Lex Luthor, but yet none of them are willing to even do surface, just surface good deeds to cover up their bad deeds. They're like, no, we're capitalists, we're greedy, and we ain't covering up what we're doing. We're just going to do what we're going to do. And you can't stop us because we got all the money. So that's where the real world and fiction separate. Because in fiction, they have to cover their crimes, but in the real world, they don't. So I have no idea where we are. Because again, okay, so it's 8:00 CST. That means it's still 6:00 on the West Coast, which means if you're on the West Coast, you still have an hour left to vote. I don't know. I haven't watched footage, so I don't know if they've started counting or if they're not going to start counting until every polling place has closed. So I don't know where we are. But this has been very educating and informative. It's been really informative to see how Lex Luthor became president and what he did while he was president. And we read it out of an excerpt from a Metropolis history book or whatever, because it was published by Wayne Publishing. Okay, so that is all for today. Let's see. Okay. So Agatha All Along is over. I have no idea if Penguin has another episode, but I'm pretty sure they should have had one by now. They should have. But we'll see if I continue with Penguin. I may come back after it's all over to say whether or not it eventually grabbed me or not, because right now it's boring me to tears. The next movie I think on my list is the Gladiator movie. Although I think there's also a Moana movie coming up that they have not been advertising. Side-eye Disney. But yeah, so Gladiator with Denzel Washington. Definitely going to see that. I don't know. I think there's a Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, I think. And I still don't know if that's like live action or animated. I haven't seen any advertising for it, so I don't know what that is. If it exists, I may go see it. But yeah, so don't know when I'll be back. Watch my community posts. I will let you know the next time I will come back. And if there's something you want me to come back for and talk about, please, go up under my community post and comment like, hey, or comment on the video, comment on the community post, just comment that you want to come back and you want to talk about something really important. Okay, so that is all. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.